After a spectacular day visiting the weird and wonderful Meteora, we were now heading to the east coast peninsula of Pelion, famed for being the home of the centaur apparently, but more importantly, some of the nicest beaches in Greece. It would take us about 2 days-ish to get there, and amazingly, we had managed to get 2 warm shower hosts pretty easily that were a good distance away for us to aim for. Our host messaged us and we arranged where to meet. He was nice and let us camp in his garden, not before doing a full presentation on his top range bike touring kit. Very inspirational. We had a nice dinner together and I was so ready for bed when he just casually turned on the movie Hostiles with Christian Bale. At first I was like, how am I going to get out of this situation? I'm desperate for bed. But after 5 minutes, I was completely mesmerized. It had been almost 6 months since we'd watched the film, or anything really apart from the odd trashy European music video, or TLC reality shows. It helps that it was a good film, but I was just like, wow, movies are really good. Hardly a revelation, but not the sort of thing that you'd expect to be surprised by. Also, another quick side note, he told us about this area in Greece where it's only Orthodox priests living in monasteries and you need to apply to go and visit and there is no women allowed. Can you imagine a big part of your country where you're literally not allowed to go to at all because you're a woman? Not really on board with that, to be honest. Not really on board. In the morning, we packed up and stopped in town for some breakfast with all these dogs. This town has something like 6,000 or 7,000 people, maybe more, that could be wrong, I don't know. Not a lot of people, but basically they've got like 18 coffee shops. The ratio of coffee shop to per 1,000 people was wild here. Again, this country takes its coffee supply very seriously. Our next stop was Volos, a big harbour city on the peninsula. The road there was decent, but you could definitely feel a bit of a change in the weather. It was still hot and nice, but the days of blaring sunshine were coming to an end. We arrived in Volos and then went up into the hills a bit where our host Kostas was staying. It was a bit of a trek, but not really a big deal. He was extremely chill, like so relaxed. I don't think he even cycled, he was just on the app and just up for letting people stay with him. Since we were a bit out of the way from the city centre, we went to a local resto for a huge feast. As always, like hours earlier than most punters, but I just can't get on board with 8:30 being too early for a meal. I like that the waiter also just seeing us as tourists was like, what are you guys doing here? Like, why this little place where no one ever comes except locals? There was also this mental praying mantis which was going berserk around us, which was great and the first time for me. In the morning we said bye to Kostas and he offered for us to stay with him when we made our way back along this way, which was super nice of him. Following the coastal roads to Tsagkarada, and I've got no idea how to pronounce that. Tsagkarada? Who knows? Anyway, it was a really nice ride along beautiful winding roads that gradually took us over the hills and onto the east coast. We eventually arrived at the Airbnb after much delay. The internet service here wasn't brilliant and the tiny zigzag roads were heavy confusing, but we got there and it was fantastic. Honestly, I don't think we could have worked it out better. We spent a week here and had the best time, eating great food, drinking quite a lot of beer, reading, enjoying the views, and of course going to the famous Fakistra beach. Now, it was a bit of a steep walk to get there, but once we were there, we could spend the whole day without having to worry about how we were going to get back. I think a lot of people just stop by for a bit and they're usually in a car and trying to visit lots of the beaches in the area, but we had the absolute luxury to stay as long as we wanted, or at least until the sun went down. I tended to face the sun quite a lot for maximum tanning, which is what I'm mainly focused on. So sometimes I would have my back to the sea, and this mad patronising wanker came over one day and was like, "Hey guys, you know that the view's behind you? Grow up, mate, and mind your own business, because my business is tanning and I've been here all bloody day." After almost 6 months on the road, I turned into a lean, mean cycling machine, and I'm not afraid to show it off. Before the trip, I honestly felt like shit. Too much drinking, stress from work, and not really looking after myself. Obviously, it is not sustainable to cycle for like 8 hours a day just to keep fit, and I definitely don't look like this anymore.
Oh, hey.
But damn, I think this is the healthiest I've ever been and probably ever will be, despite the beer and Haribo lifestyle that I'd adopted on the road. Yeah.
Yes.
Silly snake!
So our lovely host, Lena, has just brought us some delicious something. And olives from her garden. You can see it's dark. Hey! Hey! This is the old school. This is where they used to teach some little small pupils, Greek people, pupils, when they were invaded by the Ottoman Empire, used to hide here and continue to teach Greek and Orthodox religion. So that's it! It's full of icons, Christian Orthodox icons, and it's dark. But it's got a great view. I think the school is actually over there.
Great school!
We planned to go to the other beaches and visit the area more, but in the end we were so content just chilling here and we didn't really go anywhere else. I was also too busy listening to music again now that I had access to good Wi-Fi and could get out of the limits of what we had in the tiny MP3 player we took with us. After a week though, we did indeed need to get going, so we'd have enough time to cycle the last stretch to Athens. However, it did not go quite to plan. A few things factored into the disaster which followed. Firstly, it was super gloomy and cold, so the old joints were a bit more creaky than usual. Then whilst I did warm up, by the time we actually left and got on the road, I may as well not have done anything. Next up, a week of lying around doing almost nothing meant that there was a need to ease back into it, and so the immediate hill start with extreme gradients didn't make that very easy. We started making our way up over the mountain, but as the day wore on, my tendinitis in my left knee came back with an absolute vengeance. How bloody ironic. The thing that had been freaking me out and giving me nightmares before the trip had come right on what would now be our last day of cycling. The thing with tendinitis is when it hits, you really just need to stop and rest, but it's hardly practical to do that when you're cycling up a mountain. Like, where are you supposed to go? It was a 1200 meter pass that we were basically starting around sea level at, and the gradients ranged between 10 and 12% for most of the way. I actually walked the bike up large portions of it. Even with Lily taking some extra weight, it was such a struggle and it took us all day. I have to give a shout out to Liliana's patience for dealing with that as we went up, because it must have been just as frustrating for her as it was for me. I was just completely gutted. The dream of triumphantly cycling into Athens was smashed. The one good thing though was at the top of the mountain there was a dog right in the middle of the road taking a dump, which always makes me laugh, and at least it was an easy cruise after that down to Volos. We stayed with Costas again and organised ourselves while feasting on gyros. The plan was now that we'd take the train from Volos to Athens and book a place for us to stay a few extra nights that we hadn't planned. Clearly annoyed by the whole situation, I have almost no videos or pictures of the 2 nights we stayed in Volos, so you'll just need to use your imagination. We spent the next day sorting out train stuff, exploring the city a bit, and then in the evening we went for some beers in the city centre. It was a Friday night and I kid you not, no one was drinking anything except coffee until maybe 9 PM. It's not a particularly touristy city, but you could spot them a mile away just by the fact that they were drinking pints of beer. After 9 PM though, it started to look pretty normal, but can you just imagine being in Glasgow around 7 PM or 8 PM on a Friday night and all the bars are just filled with people getting wired in coffee? I found it quite troubling. Quite troubling indeed. In the morning, we got to the train station and watched this dog for a while, obviously. Look at him. Frustratingly, the train was cancelled, but it wasn't too much hassle getting the bikes and bags onto a bus, and we got the train a bit further down towards Athens. Was I gutted to not have cycled the last stretch? Sort of. I mean, as much as anything, I was just sad that now I was injured again, and it's not something I've completely fixed with my knee, even now 2 years after we've returned. I don't really care that much about the symbolism of completing the whole journey by bike. Actually, if you remember from one of the earlier episodes, we'd taken the train from Rennes to Nantes in France, so anyway, we couldn't really claim that we'd done it all by cycling. There you go, we're frauds. Frauds. But honestly, who cares? Whilst the last stretch hadn't gone to plan, we'd barely had the plan at all for the whole 6 months, and nothing could really take away from the amazing adventure we'd had. From the train, we watched with a smile as it was absolutely bucketing it down, happy to be in a warm cabin rather than getting soaked on the road. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope if you've made it all the way through these episodes that you've enjoyed them and that you'll leave me a like and a comment with anything you want to talk about down below. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do, because whilst this series is coming to an end, I've got lots of other ideas and videos planned out, and I'm looking forward to getting right stuck into them and not having to scrub through 1,000,000 gigabytes of footage like I've been doing for the last 6 months, but that's been a bit easier during a pandemic to do it, so here we are. So thank you again for watching, and I'll see you on Wednesday.
Oh, hey.